Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and staying tuned. We are the third discussion of the day on this beautiful day, World Hijab Day, and you are tuned in live to the World Hijab Day conference. Our topic discussion is politicization of hijab, and I'm your host, Shreen Mahmood. I have got some amazing speakers with me today, and we're going to be speaking to Sister Nour Farhat, Sister Sahar Jaber, Sister Fatima-Zohra, and we will be joined shortly by Sister Afrah. If you guys could all take a minute to share this live, let us know in the comments where you're tuned in from. We'd love to hear from you. If you want any further information after this as well, you can check out worldhijabday.com as well. But it is one of those days where all of us can stand together and raise a voice, inshallah, to stand together with the sisters who choose to wear hijab. Unfortunately, around the world, in especially in the European countries right now, there's a lot of negative sentiment towards people who wear hijab. The discrimination sometimes that we face, and the sort of worry around wearing it, and that shouldn't be the case. There are so many of us powerful Muslim women who choose to wear hijab, and together, inshallah, I think we can really take control of this narrative and this conversation. So I'm just going to quickly play a video for you, and we'll be back. Right, we're back, and that's just a special invitation to absolutely everyone who's tuned in. It's so important for us to, stand together at this point. Without further ado, I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I got involved with World Hijab Day. A couple of years back, actually what happened is there was a move to ban the hijab within primary schools here in the UK. And although my young girls are quite young and they don't wear the hijab right now, I thought it was a very, very important conversation for us to have. And actually, this was not okay, with me, and it didn't sit well with so many of the sisters in the UK. Hijab has fast become this tool that everybody and anybody wants to get involved and talk about the hijab, and quite often the media, within politics, governments can encourage a policy where it's against the hijab, right? It's a symbol of oppression for the media, for example. But inshallah, what we're going to be doing is taking that all apart and discussing how it's affected and impacted Muslims around the world. So if I introduce our very first special guest, it's Sister Nour. And Sister Nour actually is a lawyer in civil litigation and constitutional law in Montreal, Canada. She's a holder of a master's degree in criminal law. She has a strong interest in matters related to human rights, criminal and constitutional law. She is currently involved in the legal proceedings challenging the secularism law of Quebec, known as Bill 21. The law that bans public sector workers in positions of authority, including teachers, lawyers, police officers, and judges, from wearing religious symbols on the job, which is, of course, hijab is one of those. So, Sister Nour, if I hand it over to you, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out to talk to us about this.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, can we talk a little bit about your hijab story first, please?
Honestly, I was born in Quebec. I grew up in Quebec, and this is something that is so taboo to talk about the hijab. This is something you don't talk about in schools, in the media. I've been invited in so many outlets recently to talk about Bill 21. And in the French culture, this is something that is so much taboo, so I'm not used to talk about my hijab story. I put the hijab, I was a teenager. I put it because uh, the people that were around me, the women who were around me, they had the hijab, and I felt so empowered by these women that I felt, like attracted to their energy, and I felt that I wanted to put the hijab. And I grew old with the hijab. I'm sorry, my English is really rusty. French is my first language. So, yeah, so I grew up with the hijab, and I grew up to be empowered with the hijab. So this is pretty much my story.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we've also got, three other amazing panelists with us. We've got Sister Fatima-Zohra. If I just introduce you to our lovely sister, she's a Brussels-based student and documentary filmmaker, mostly active on feminist and anti-racist issues through Imazi.Rhine Collective's work. So I hope I pronounced that right. She co-organized the Hijabis Fight Back movement, which is amazing campaign along Belgium's Comvu and La Clinique Mais Vague on, I'm going to let you pronounce that, please, for us, on the 5th of July 2020. Because inclusion has become meaningless, she is radically inclusive. What an amazing sort of, hashtag to have. So please, Sister Fatima, tell us a little bit more about you and your hijab story.
Everybody here is feeling the same way. We are not very often outside of our own circles getting to speak positively about our, not only the way we dress, but about our faith in general. We're mostly in the West in a very defensive state when we talk about Islam. So it's quite refreshing, to be honest, to be able to be on this kind of panels, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you to you, Shreen, and to the entire massive organization that's probably behind World Hijab Day. And I am kind of recognizing what Nour said about not very oftenly talking about my hijab story openly, because as much as Nour, I only had to talk about it publicly when being, again, in a defensive mode against politicians or in mainstream media, where you don't necessarily want to talk about the most private relationship that you have, which is the one with God. I don't want to talk openly about my hijab story for someone to simply feel like giving a counter argument. That's not a story, and that's not a part of my belief, so I want people to openly be able to oppose to. So the very immediate response that I have is, I am not talking about my hijab story, I'm talking about it generally. So I'm happy to be able to do it today, hoping no clip will be used later on Twitter by some trolls. What originally, wearing a hijab is just the simple obligation in Islam of having to wear a headscarf and of having to be able to dress modestly, not only about the headscarf, but modesty as a whole, and not only in the dress, but also in behavior. So it was something very automatic when I fell upon those verses to start wearing anything on my hair. And though many people are very judgmental about the way that sometimes my neck is apparent, it is something very automatic, though people could call it cultural, and the fact that I grew up around women that have always been dressing this way, that it's very automatic to hide your hair when you go out, as much as I hide my legs or I hide my back. It is not something that I thought about, and it's only when being confronted to other opinions in society that you realize that culturally some things are not accepted in the West as much as they're being normalized in other parts of the world. And that's why the idea of politicization of hijab is very interesting, because we don't see it as something political at all. At first, and that's something we'll talk about later on. So my hijab story was only the idea of feeling a sense of belonging, of seeing someone in the street and very automatically having a assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. So it's really that sense of belonging that attracted me to hijab when I was very young, and that will probably make me stay attached to it very strongly forever, inshallah.
Wow, amazing.
About the pronunciation, maybe you'll say that later on. So the Hijabi Fight Back campaign was organized with Belgium comme vous and La Cinquième Vague, which are French names, and our collective, our collective is called Imazirène. Voilà. Thank you.
Right, so thank you so much for correcting that, because I thought maybe it was like Germanish, but it's not. It's French.
French.
Thank you so much for that. We have two other special guests with us as well. Sister Afrah is with us right there, and if I just introduce Sister Afrah Al-Jabouri, who was born and raised in Denmark. She has an office education and works both as a Muslim hijab model and actress, and as a passenger assistant at Copenhagen Airport. She's been involved in politics, but actually was treated quite badly because of her hijab and her religion. So I'm so excited to be speaking to you as well, Sister Afrah. Please tell us a little bit more, and how what's your hijab story? How did you come about wearing it?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I started to wear the hijab too young. I was 8 years old, and I quickly found out it was part of my identity. I went in a private Arabic school in Copenhagen, and all the girls in my class, they wore hijab, and I would like to be like them, and that's why I started to wear the hijab. When I got more mature, I started doing my own research, and I discovered that this is something compulsory and it's a sign of modesty. It's for our sake, so people will not harm us. That's my hijab story.
Wow, I mean, it's so nice to hear from sisters that are doing powerful things within the communities, and they still have such a love for the hijab as well. Whether we like it or not, what it means to us personally, it's not always the case of how it's perceived by the other person who has no, maybe either no or minimal contact with other Muslims. So, I mean, this gives us an opportunity to talk really about that as well. Last but not least, we've got Sister Sahar Jaber with us as well. And if I introduced her too, she was born and raised in Canada. She has completed a double honors in communications and sociology. She has studied several years of Islamic studies in Lebanon. She is the founder of Figs and Olives Publications, which focuses on publishing Islamic children's literature to ensure that Muslim children are also represented in English literature. I mean, you're so lucky to have been a formal student of knowledge. Alhamdulillah, like I've recently just started on my own formal study journey with the amazing Sheikh Akram Nadwi, actually, who you might know as the author of the Women Scholars in Islam, which is a monumental 53-volume biographical dictionary which charts the journeys of so many Muslim women, contributions made by female hadith scholars over the centuries. So books and literature, it's so important. So I'm really, really excited to speak to you, Sahar. Tell us a little bit more about you and your hijab journey, and
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for providing this beautiful platform. And I'd like to congratulate first everyone on World Hijab Day, a beautiful celebration that we should all encourage. And of course, on the remembrance of the birth of Sayyidah Fatima-Zohra, Prophet Muhammad's daughter. So two beautiful occasions happening at the same time. So my hijab story really, since I was a kid, since I was 8 years old, I randomly woke up one day, wore the hijab, and told my mom I'm wearing the hijab from now on. I didn't even question it whatsoever, even though I went to a Canadian school, a public school. I was the only hijabi in the whole school. But to me, what was important was my family really made sure that we understood that society is society and the Islamic household is our roots. So the Islamic understanding and being raised under Islamic beliefs No matter what society does around us, it doesn't matter. What we hold on to is our Islamic beliefs. So it was that root as a kid that I was really empowered to always wear the hijab very proudly, even though I never wore it as pretty as these girls now wear it. They have such beautiful fashion nowadays. The hijab was so simple before when I was younger. It was just that two-piece hijab that we all know about. But to me, the hijab was just a very, very everyday action that I just did. I just wore it on. It was just that simple.
Amazing. And I think it is, we sometimes think it's, you know, we perhaps get used to it being a big part of us and forget sometimes that, you know, other people might not feel so comfortable to talk to us about it or why we wear it, and a lot of people have questions about it. This is why, you know, initiatives like this World Hijab Day and these discussion opportunities and platforms are so important. I mean, if I was to ask you guys all, what's your favorite thing about wearing the hijab, and you know, what keeps you motivated? Because it's a very tough society right now. It's a very tough world. I mean, yes, we can say, when has it ever been easy? But right now, with the rise of Islamophobia, you know, the fact that a lot of governments are trying to ban it, you know, from workplaces and things like that, it's a very tough situation to be, you know, hijab wearers. So what's your favorite thing about wearing the hijab, and what keeps you motivated? So if we speak to Sister Nour first, what do you think?
Well, a little bit of my story is I made my master's degree to become a crown prosecutor here in Quebec. And the fact that I wear the hijab, I'm not able to become a crown prosecutor. The Quebec government passed the bill prohibiting the wearing of the religious symbols 2 months before I finished my master's degree. And then, you know what? I was on the team of lawyers that sued the government against this bill that made me not become a crown prosecutor. I am so proud of myself. I am so proud. And this is my motivation. You know what? I'm strong. And I think every woman that is here and every woman who is listening to us is a strong woman. We are so strong. We are so compassionate. We know so much about justice because we're living the injustice and we're living the oppression. And this is my motivation. Like, what do I need more than to be on the side of the oppressed and fight the oppression I'm living here? So this is my motivation. I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm standing up against the oppression. I know I'm standing against the violation of human rights in Quebec. And the fact that I'm proud of what I'm doing, this is my motivation. And I think we all should be proud of wearing the hijab in 2021 in Western countries, especially with all the bills and all the Islamophobia that is happening right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that answer, because it's so powerful to hear from someone who, you know, we all have a little human rights activist in all of us, right? But you've taken on such an amazing, you know, thing. You're challenging the government who's, you know, legislated this very Islamophobic, very hijabophobic, you know, policy. So inshallah, may Allah give you all the power, and we stand in support of you. And you know, again, I say to everybody who's tuned in from all over the world right now, you know, these things are so important right now. So we appreciate your ongoing support, inshallah. Stay tuned, and make sure you go and follow Sister Nour and show her the support that she deserves, because I think if we realize one thing, it's one hijabi's fight is another hijabi's fight too. It's not just our individual fight. This is us making a voice, a strong voice against the oppression that we face by choosing to wear the hijab. It's not the hijab that is oppressing us, but in actual fact, it's the environment that we're in that actually pushes us down. But alhamdulillah for powerful sisters like yourself, and our other panelists as well. Sister Sahar, if you could jump in as well on this conversation, what do you think?
So discussing this matter is so important for all of us. And like to think about it, I agree totally with Sister Nour. And I think that the only time that a Muslim hijabi will find power is when they see the hijab, as you said, as not something that's stopping them, but something that's going to actually liberate them in their own sense. And so when we look at the difference between a Muslim and a Muslim's fundamentals and a non-Muslim's fundamentals in terms of the hijab, a woman can say that the hijab is oppressing her because it's something that's covering her, because she's following a man, Prophet Muhammad's beliefs that he was given by God. And so that makes it patriarchal. And so if we go to all these underlying keywords that they're discussing about us and they're claiming for us to be, it makes it seem like it's such a terrible thing of what we're actually doing as an oppressed woman that's subordinated to a male. But in reality, as Muslims, we all know it's not like that. We know that our liberation actually comes when we wear the hijab and when we tell society that I am going to follow what God wanted me to follow and not what society would want me to follow. And so that liberation is key for us Muslim hijabis. And that's what actually keeps us going. That's what should keep any Muslim female follower going, because if she's going to wait for society to bring her into its arms and say that you are welcomed, well, that's never going to happen, because what we believe in fundamentally goes against what they believe is important.
So what motivates you to keep wearing it? Do you find it difficult, or are you quite firm and strong right now? And has it always been that way?
Throughout, I was heavily bullied as a kid. So it was definitely difficult. I was the kid that no one wanted to invite to their lunch table or be in a group with, or the kid that people pointed out. I was always that kid that had no one to actually ask for when it was a group project, or the last person asked to be on a sports team. So wearing hijab was always difficult my whole life. It was a struggle. Does that mean that the hijab is it to blame? Of course not. What motivates me is my belief in God. It's my belief that there is a supreme power that will make all of this worth it. And by me obeying that supreme power was where I find my strength. So ultimately, all my strength in wearing the hijab only comes from my belief in God and my belief in Islam and my appreciation for the beautiful religion that he provided us. And so every single time I want to wear the hijab, it's important for me to reinforce this idea that as I wear my hijab, I am wearing this hijab with the intention to become closer to God. That simple act of telling yourself, reinforcing why you are wearing the hijab as you go out of the house, actually makes you become empowered. Because ultimately, we all wear our hijab for God. We don't wear it for anything else other than God. And so us reinforcing and us discussing it to God as though he was an intimate friend that we can discuss to, God, watch me, I'm your servant, I'm wearing this ultimately and only for you. And so bless me with this action and see my tidings as good in your eyes. That's where I find my strength, is that moment of reflection as I wear my hijab that I try to do every time I wear the hijab. Because if it's not a connection between me and God, then anyone's going to come and interfere with what I'm wearing and what I'm doing. But your connection and your belief system, that's key, is why do you wear the hijab? Is something everyone has to ask themselves. Once they figure out why they wore it, once they believe it solidly, they're able to wear it in such motivation, in such power, in such courage, that nothing really impacts them. What society or how society is going to bully them, whether it's work, and like Nour was saying, or whether it's school, it becomes a lousy form of speech that they want to talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a very personal journey as well, isn't it? That questioning and working out why, where, who. Although it's quite clear in the Quran, and we're told by our teachers, etc., how important it is. I think again we look for role models, we look for representation as well. Sister Fatima, what about yourself? Like, what motivates you? Because of course, it's not an easy thing to wear in today's society. What's your experience been, and what motivates you? Have you struggled with it?
To overcome when you know the intentions behind some of your actions. So it's not a struggle that is making it impossible, and Nour talked about it as well. It's a struggle that is making you feel more powerful and is giving way more meaning to your actions. But throughout my own evolution in religious readings, I've always been very attracted to the idea of the collective and of Muslims as a collective, being able to carry certain values and being able to carry divine values throughout, being there for each other. And so again, the idea of having a very recognizable, not only in the hijab, but in various symbolics and in various ways of holding ourselves in society as Muslims, being able to carry certain values collectively is something that I've always been getting a lot of strength out of, and being able to keep on track of my exploration of faith. And that's one of the things, well, hijab is one of the things that is actually through the collective that is so recognizable, and has been something that I've always been grasping with all of my faith onto, as much as it is not easy, and certainly in a context like Belgium. And there's something that Sahar said that is so important, but unfortunately these kind of things are not being repeated enough. It's like, what is your intention behind it? And today, not everybody wears the hijab, as much as not everybody is Muslim with the right niyyah. Not everybody wears the hijab with saying to themselves, I am wearing it simply because of God. Some people say it very openly and states it, I'm wearing it because I find it fashionable, I'm wearing it culturally, I'm wearing it as we can, for example, talk about politics in North Africa, where the hijab was a very political sign during colonization, and was being torn off of women's heads, where women after colonization would say, I'm wearing my headscarf as an opposition to imperialism, as an opposition to colonialism. So there's, throughout history and throughout all of the things that came and kind of ruined all of the peace that religious scriptures brought with them, I mean humans, and the fact that we were in no way perfect, brought different significations to the headscarf, and brought different significations. And that's why I kind of feel it's a pity today that there aren't maybe a few more panels that were given where men would be present, because I'm sure that would be a very interesting addition to the conversation, how a few things have been changed throughout history and throughout certain things that Muslim communities have had to endure, and to be able to get back to the idea the headscarf is ultimately simply a symbol of submission to God, and we should be able to talk about that interpretation only within the community. That's a conversation that has to be held, and these kind of panels are making it possible to bring it back up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's so many ways that we could, add important parts to this discussion. But Sister, if we could go to you as well, Sister Afrah. I mean, how has your hijab journey been? What motivates you? Has it always been easy, or has it been a struggle? You're born and raised in Denmark. How's it been for you?
Sometimes I'm surprised that people talk to me in a special way, and not just like a girl wearing hijab. Sometimes I have a bad surprise, and the bad experience is when there is a lot of prejudice, and they think here in Denmark, they think that women wearing hijab, they are about me, they think maybe poor her, poor girl, she cannot choose for herself. Maybe her father obliged her to wear the hijab, her family, and she has no choice, and she is a poor soul. But the positive experience, still, I have Danish friends here who do not have prejudice against Muslim women. So this means that not all Danish people are, racist, fortunately. So, yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I think this is it, isn't it? There's so many misconceptions around it, and primarily, I'll tell you how I heard it. Sheikha Tamara Gray actually was a couple of years ago. We had a World Hijab Day event at a local university, and she said that actually Muslim women are the only ones that walk, we're the believing women that walk the earth, and everyone knows our faith by what we choose to wear. And that in itself is just so powerful. The hijab actually is such an honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, directly to us, for us women only. And it's become so with so many different meanings. I wear it because of this, I wear it because of that. And it's like you said, sister, as well, that we have to be able to discuss it in the way that we need to, and the fact that it is a major part of our identity. It's a submission to God, and it's to identify us as Muslim believing women. I mean, without even moving our lips, without even speaking, we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So that's just so, it's so special within itself. And I think that's a big part of the motivation for me. And it's when you get close to Allah and you realize that this is it's bigger than us. Not only are we wearing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only are we trying to put out the best versions of ourselves, we represent a faith, and a faith that is often misrepresented. Can't get my words out, often misrepresented in the media, in politics around the world, and actually I think this is an opportunity for us all to say that actually we are powerful, we are strong believers, we do have a voice, we certainly have a voice, and we certainly will not allow any injustice to happen with our sisters. And unfortunately there are there's been such a big move. There's incidents that we can remember very easily. The lady who got attacked in Australia, that went pretty viral, that was awful. Recently what happened in France, and I can't even, to be honest with, I can't even discuss that without feeling overwhelmed. And this is I feel it as an attack personally on all of us. It's like we say, we are part of an ummah, and if something happens to one of us, it hurts all of us. And this is an opportunity for us all to get involved and make a stand, so that this doesn't continue, that we nip it in the bud how much ever we can. And we have to believe first and foremost that we have the power to be able to make that change, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on our sides, with good intentions, with with strength, with understanding what the situation is, with informing ourselves with what the situation is, and taking part in global initiatives like this and platforms like this. We're able to discuss this, and the next step is not just discussing, it's learning, and then taking some sort of action, talking to our our local councillors, our local politicians, our local, community leaders, that they actually take a stand and actually take this further. We will not allow, we should not allow bans to happen. And this is why around the world we've got protests happening now. And we, of course, we support our sisters in their choice to wear hijab freely, without facing discrimination. Sister Fatima, if you could come in and talk to us a little bit more about your hijabis fight back, please. If that's okay, Sister Fatima.
Hear me, my mic was still off. Okay, well, hijabis fight back, where to start? There was an entire campaign that we led after. First, you have to know that in universities in Belgium, there is no there is actually no ban on religious symbols, whether it's the hijab or the kippah or a sheikh turban. There is no, how do we say, ban at all. I'm sorry, I was getting over to French all of a sudden. And so the schools that actually got to get a headscarf ban were only higher educational institutions, and most of the time those are institutions that people that are way more marginalized because they do not have access to universities because of, you know, higher costs and a higher level of studies that isn't accessible to everyone. Those institutions all of a sudden had got the permission from the Constitutional Court in Brussels to be able to ban religious symbols from the year afterwards. So from September 2020 onwards. And the problem behind that was that most politicians were hiding it behind, again, you know, the entire idea of secularism and neutrality, and that they were talking about all religious symbols being in the ban. That's always the excuse. It is not about Muslim women. It's about everyone, while they know that in numbers, it is going to impact Muslim women the most, first of all, but second of all, that the women that actually went to court and went in front of a judge were Muslim women that were fighting against an original ban. And so the initial discrimination was against Muslim women. And we heard about it during a lockdown, and we knew that the year afterwards, schools were actually going to instrumentalize that new arrests and were going to apply it to their regulations, and that the year afterwards it was going to be a problem for hundreds of Muslim women, maybe hundreds of thousands of Muslim women in Belgium. And so we just started a campaign during the lockdown, really thinking that we were only going to hear Muslim women's stories, and that it would maybe impact general thinking and, you know, people's thoughts, and maybe get to a few politicians. And in 48 hours it actually got to international news, and people, because there is that idea, mostly in North America, it is unimaginable not to be able to go to school without a headscarf, because for us, for example, fighting to be able to wear a headscarf in university and higher educational institutions is as far as it actually goes. We do not get to wear it in high school. We do certainly not get to wear it in primary school. And those are still fights that are being fought and that are so hard to be fought against, because there is the entire idea of children younger than 18 not being able to make decisions for themselves. So unfortunately, we still have to go to high school without headscarves in Belgium. So that is still something that is extremely hard, and that is actually one of the main issues that is making so many Belgian Muslim women say it was hard at first, because you do not get to recognize yourself in the mirror during your lunch break at school. You're not yourself for 12 years on, and then you get to university, and then you finally get to cruise. So that ban was actually the idea that young girls of 18 getting ready for university, like I was getting ready for university, and being like, last breath, you're getting ready for next year, and then nobody will be able to literally take clothes off of your body anymore, because that is very violent, and we should present it in a way that is as violent as it actually is, because we've been normalizing it way too much in Belgium. I mean, we go to high school and we do not even question it anymore. And the idea that that would be able to have an impact on women in universities, in higher educational institutions, and after 18, when they are actually mature enough to make those decisions for themselves, that was actually the last drop. And I think that if that happened in America in high school, I think it would have already exploded over there. So for us, the last drop was really, you're taking it away from us when we are actually adult women. And that is something that we didn't want to let go. And what was special about Hijabis Fight Back is that it wasn't actually organized by any big community leader. They were really supported by the community leaders in Brussels. It was by very young women, all students, who just took their iPhones and were like, okay, people, let's just come together and do something about it. And we got in touch with people who were in touch with politicians until it really had an impact. And like I said, it made international news. And alhamdulillah, we've got really good news less than a week ago. The ban is not lifted, so that's not very good news, actually. The school that we stood there for is still it's still problematic. The ban is still applied there, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but we're doing it, alhamdulillah, and the fight is going. But the ban was lifted from a certain part of schools. Approximately 50 schools are actually part of the area where the ban was lifted, and it's going to impact more than 40,000 students. So alhamdulillah, it's going strong, and like the power of these tools, and just, you know, saying openly what you think and how you feel. And I think that's the gap that has been existing, at least in Belgium, and maybe all of you will be able to talk about it in your context, the gap that existed in Belgium between politicians and our actual opinions. Because again, I don't know how it's going in other countries, but Muslim politicians are not necessarily the voices that Muslims do always defend and always want to hear on religious issues. And so the fact that our voice was being heard directly, without any filter, without being reformulated, without subtitles, nothing, it was us directly, had an impact on people really being able to hear. We're young, mature women, we want to study, and nobody should be able to take that away from us. And yeah, there's a lot more that I could be able to say about Hijabi's fight back, but I'll try not to monopolize the time now. But so, alhamdulillah, it's going well. There are still many challenges, but we're going strong.
No, it's honestly, it's such an important aspect to talk about. We're here to talk about the politicization of the hijab, and of course protesting is a big part of a movement and raising that voice. And like we've been saying, that we do have a voice and we need to use that voice. I mean, Sister Afrah, Sister Sahar, and Sister Nour, how has it been around where you guys are living about, with Bill 21? Have there been protests, and have you been part of that, or is that an ongoing thing? Anyone who wants to come in. Sister Nour, have you been part of any protests? Or I know you're taking on the government. You're literally taking on you're challenging Bill 21, which is amazing.
Yeah, so I will talk about the legal challenge because this is what I've been doing for the last year and a half. So for the people who are not familiar with Bill 21, Bill 21 is a law that prohibits people that work in position of authority to work for the government. So police officers, teachers, crown prosecutor, lawyers, judges, like everyone who has to work for the Quebec government cannot wear a religious symbol. And like Fatima-Zohra said, this idea of banning the wearing of religious symbol is something that is so shocking in North America that this is something that is so new in Canada. This idea to violate human rights in this way was so shocking when the bill was adopted. So the Quebec government said the same thing that Belgium said, that the law applied to every religion, to everyone who wears a religious symbol. However, when you look at the facts, it's only Muslim women who have been affected by the law. It's only Muslim women who had lost their jobs, who weren't able to find jobs because they were a religious symbol. So the law is discriminatory against women who wear the hijab. The thing about the Bill 21, it was passed a few years after the shooting of the Quebec mosque. So the environment of Quebec is so much, there is this Islamophobia in the province that the politicians aren't able to first recognize and second to calm down. So we live, I feel in Quebec, we live in such a dangerous place for human rights and Muslim people rights right now. So I will be talking more about the trial now. The trial began in November 2020. It was a trial of 7 weeks, and I was preparing it for a year and a half. It was so much work. We made the procedures, we made the complaint against the government as soon as the bill became a law. So I've been working on it for a year and a half. It took all of my time as a lawyer, and honestly, this is a work that tired me so much, to be reading about Islamophobia, discrimination, Muslim women every day. It take a toll on you. So I'm really tired. The trial finished a few weeks ago, but it was a really difficult trial. To be the only Muslim woman to hear the proof that the government has about Muslim women, and to hear everything that the expert had to say about Muslim women, Muslim people, minorities. It was really difficult, honestly. But I feel I was privileged enough to be present in this space where I wasn't supposed to be, honestly. Like this legal debate was supposed to be like between Quebecois and Quebecois people, lawyers from Quebec against the lawyer of the government, without any religious minorities. But you know what? I was there, and I feel that I'm grateful I was able to be there and to participate in this conversation. Even though it was such a difficult conversation, it was really a hard trial. I did walks and protests before the trial, but the trial has taken a toll psychologically on me and on all the Muslim women who were involved in the trial. To hear for 7 weeks that your government doesn't approve of like Muslim women who wear the hijab, to hear that the hijab is a symbol of oppression, to hear that all the people who lost their job because of Bill 21 are Muslim women, it's really difficult, especially when you are born in Quebec. So I'm visibly tired from this trial, but I'm really hopeful for the future. I'm really hopeful. I have really a lot of faith in the judicial system of Canada. So this is where I'm at.
I mean, it's almost crazy, isn't it, that we're talking about just something as simple as wearing the hijab, right? It's an item of clothing. It's a piece of fabric that has become so politicized and so it's something that the media have to constantly talk about, something that the governments are using as a tool, in their voting and scoring points, even with even the hijab, the potential hijab ban now in France recently. I think just a few days ago, it's been reported that they want to ban the headscarf now. Obviously, there's always been it's been in the news quite often about the face veil bans and how it's not all of this stuff, the face veil ban, the burkinis, that was quite shocking as well, that sisters can't actually go to the beach because if they wear burkinis. And if we talk about it in the global context, it blows your mind, doesn't it? As adult women, we can't choose what to wear. It's okay for us to wear like skirts, trousers, whatever we want, but they choose to attack our hijab, something that is so important to us. Sister Sahar, is there anything? Yep, sorry, Sister Nour, carry on.
I'm so sorry to cut you. I just wanted to make a comment about this before we end the subject on the freedoms and policing the bodies of Muslim women. The thing is, it's not only the violation of freedom of religion. It's not only about that. I wish it was only about violating the freedom of religion of Muslim people. It's policing the bodies of Muslim women. This is not. It's a violation of our dignity. It's the violation of our freedom of thinking, of doing what we are doing to do, and to do what we want to do. It's so much more than the violation of the freedom of religion. And this is the biggest concern for me. Our dignity is being violated, and they want to police our bodies, they want to police our mind, they want to police what I want to wear every day. And we can't accept that. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm so glad you did, because it's such an important topic. It's such an important point to make right here, that when you hear it like that, they're literally policing our bodies, it really hits home hard. And it's difficult not to get emotional about that, because this is real. Yes, Sister Fatima, please come in.
Yes, I think you can hear me now. I actually would like to react on what Nour said, and I think that in that way there are quite many things that are similarities between Canada and most of Europe. It is that there is actually a history of that unveiling that is known, and that unfortunately we are not linking enough to what is happening today, because, like I said, there are some things that are quite new in the US and that nobody would ever consider. Like what Nour said, I didn't know the bill was actually importing something that is actually normal here. You cannot become a lawyer, you cannot become a judge, you cannot become a teacher with a headscarf on unless you do it within, an Islamic school. But they are not many, and again, the state is working against the fact that Islamic schools could be a thing. So it's a very hard challenge for many women who want to occupy those kind of jobs, and many women actually go abroad or choose another job, so they're really limiting themselves. So to us, we kind of accommodated to those realities, and hearing, and mostly it's also because of being exposed to realities in the US, because of how culturally it has a big impact on the West, and we're being confronted to the films and to magazines and to everything that we see there. And so when we hear about Muslim initiatives actually, and we see little girls wearing a headscarf to school, we're mind blown, because here there really is a knowledge of the history of, for example, France. When we talk about France, it's nothing new. France was known during colonial times, again, for holding those unveiling ceremonies. We know they used Muslim women's bodies in their colonial tactics and in imperialism to actually have a hold onto Muslim communities in North Africa. And we know that they actually used it as an excuse, the liberating of the Muslim North African women. They use it as an excuse to actually be able to colonize certain areas of North Africa. So when you want to fight against certain things legally, like Nour, for example, is doing in Canada, and like we've been trying to do with Hijabis Fight Back, and with all of the great collectives that have been accompanying us to do so, to know how to fight something legally, you have to know what the other people are actually holding against you. You have to understand the other way of thinking. And that other way of thinking is actually written in colonial history, is written in the treatment of Muslims throughout the past hundreds of years. And so there really is that idea of a symbol of oppression that has been created. That has never existed. It has never been seen like it, even in Europe before colonization. That was not the way that the dress was seen, because women, non-Muslim women in Europe, would be wearing head coverings as well. And so the fact that those things disappeared throughout European history and then were used as an excuse to be able to get a hold onto certain populations throughout history is something that we need to use, because the fight against this kind of bans is actually a decolonial fight. It's a fight against ideas that were instilled in our populations for so long, and unfortunately they still have an impact on us. When a woman says, I'm wearing a headscarf because I want to be seen as being a North African woman who is wearing a headscarf, that is being instilled by colonial mindsets. That is wanting to fight against someone who came, and an imperialist who came and got on your land and killed your people and took your land and killed your father and raped your mother. And all of a sudden you want to prove yourself politically by the way that you dress. And so that is why getting to go back to how are these ideas created about our people, and not only like, you know, our people as in North Africans, but in Muslims, because those stories exist throughout the Middle East as well, is making it possible, first of all, to be like, okay, as Muslims, what are we doing now to get back to a healthy way of seeing our religion and of seeing our headdresses, and then to be able to fight colonialism within the systems that we live in. I don't know if I kept rambling on, but I heard so many interesting things, so I felt like reacting.
No, honestly, please, you're more than welcome to take the floor at any point. And these are, you know what, it's really emotionally, it really hits you. I think I did pre-warn you guys that I'm politically, I don't know as much as I could. And hearing it from this point of view, if you think about it, you know, the basic, if we strip everything away, of course it is about women and what they choose to wear, and they're policing women. Then even if we dig deeper, it's about Muslim women, isn't it? This hijab thing is nothing new, but they're constantly attacking what they're not saying, okay, you must not wear I don't know, jeans anymore. They're saying you must not wear the hijab anymore. And you know, where we're talking about career choices as adult women, what's crazy to me is I actually have 2 young daughters who will, of course, at some point maybe they will consider to wear the hijab, but they have the choice right now, you know. And I got involved with World Hijab Day so that I could make sure that the campaign was vocal and it was loud here in the UK, so that our, you know, the neighboring countries such as France and the European countries cannot leak their oppressive politics over here into the UK. And it's crazy to me that if you imagine growing up as a woman, here we are in the UK, you know, there's quite a bit of a Muslim community here, and we do tend to be quite involved and vocal about things. And you know, for our children not to have the choice to wear hijab, it's crazy to me for them not to have the choice in high school not to wear the hijab, because here, of course, it's an infringement, isn't it, on the basic faith things. Here, I'll tell you the story what happened with they tried to ban it in primary schools. They did here in the UK, and at that point they were trying to use our own faith against us, and said that, well, actually it's not compulsory in your faith until puberty, so why are children wearing it, you know. And in fact they went one step further, and they were actually Ofsted, which is the governing sort of body for schools here. They were allowed to go and speak to our young children unaccompanied, you know, without the parent, and ask them, why do you wear the hijab? Why are you wearing it? Are you being forced to wear it? Now imagine, as adult women, if somebody just comes and asks me, you know, in a normally safe space where I go and study and where I go and sit with my friends and I go and learn, and someone is asking you, why do you wear the hijab? You know, are you being forced to wear it? These are crazy conversations. And you know, at least we are at the point where we were, you know, children are still allowed to wear hijab if they want to. There's no force to wear it, but they want to. And the basics of it is being part of this massive sisterhood, this ummah that we are part of as Muslims. And you know, often children see Muslim women in their families wearing the hijab, and they want to take part in that. There's nothing oppressive or nothing forceful about it, but you know, that choice is what we're talking about. This is what World Hijab Day is. This is why the campaign this year was End Hijabophobia, because we do not want you know, to be policed. We don't want our bodies being policed. We don't want our hijab. We don't want our faith to be policed by these oppressive, you know, these oppressive policies and the politics around it. How can they choose to politicize something that is basically a faith-based symbol? But Sister Afrah and Sister Sahar, you've been quite quiet. Please do jump in at any point. How do you think, you know, how important is this conversation right now with ending hijabophobia in your countries? How important is it to you? And, you know, what's the impact been on the Muslim community where you guys live?
So, in concerning your question, if you don't mind, if I can go back as well to just Bill 21, to just discuss it quickly. When we discuss Bill 21, the racism of it is so obvious, yet they try to make it such a polite manner in which they disguise it under the narrative of what the master class would want. You see, like, if we discuss it from a sociological perspective, just studying society, we can see that there is this theory called cultural pluralism, the way culture would work within society. And in this theory, it's argued that what is actually tolerated and what's visible, the symbols that are visible in society, in the way they are tolerated in society, actually expresses the invisible understanding of that society. And so what that means is that when we come and see how the hijab is not tolerated by society, and it's not tolerated under, these polite laws of them somehow liberating us from an oppression that we don't know about, they're doing it in that manner. That in itself is a symbol that they do not tolerate us, and they do not tolerate our hijab as a symbol to be integrated into society. And so when we look at the Quebec ban of Bill 21, and they say that they created this ban so that young children aren't impacted by a teacher that's wearing a hijab. And yet we see that there's so many celebrations such as Easter and Christmas that is openly accepted into their culture and their schools, and yet it's associated with the religion, yet they make it seem like it's a cultural understanding. And so if we go back to the hijab and that narrative, we see that the hijab to them has now become, and what they are trying to do is make sure that the hijab represents a symbol of distinction, that we are distincted in society, that we are excluded, that we are discriminated from, that anyone wearing the hijab should have those features with them, between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. And this understanding becomes traditional versus modernity. And so the hijab all of a sudden cannot become in a modern world. It cannot be worked in a modern world. That is extremely dangerous, since that type of narrative actually impacts how Muslim woman starts to interpret herself. There becomes an identity crisis of what a Muslim believer feels like in a society. By one side, she's obliged to follow this law by society, yet another side, she's trying to obey God's command. And when we discuss this, when we discuss about the importance of the hijab, it's not like they don't know this. It's not like they don't actually understand this. It's exactly like you said. They actually started using Islam against in UK, because they've analyzed this so much. And so they know how important the hijab is to us, yet they've decided that that is the best tool to actually ban in society. And they have labeled it as a threat to secular society. Yet so many other practices are not a threat. And generally, when something is a threat, where they have publicly announced it as a threat, then that means that you don't want it anywhere near you. You don't want it anywhere near your culture. You don't want it anywhere near your beliefs. And so the question then becomes, how will the hijab harm secularism if every single person is equally believing in their faith? And we're not trying to convert the government here. We don't want an Islamic government. We're just asking to be able to go to university and continue our studies as a Muslim hijabi. So where is this threat that they constantly bombard us with? When we look at Asmahan Mansour, the 11-year-old girl from Laval who was on a soccer team in Quebec, and I'm sure Nour knows about this, in which the referee actually didn't allow her to play the soccer tournament because of her headscarf. And she was told that this was a safety hazard, when really she could have just tucked in the hijab. It wouldn't have, I'm sure her life was not in danger by her wearing the hijab in any way. And so her team protested against this. They supported their female hijabi soccer player, and they went to court for this. They went and they took it to the next level to hear the premier discuss it. And what did he say? He was like, well, the referee was just trying to ensure safety. Is it really a safety issue? It becomes questionable. Like how racist but polite are you going to be when you discuss our hijab in an academic and a formal manner? And so questions like this need to be raised. It's exactly like Sister Fatima and Sister Nour are talking about. It's the colonialist way of actually taking power. We're on stolen land. This is a land that's colonialized. So when they're trying to go back to their roots, what type of roots are you going back to? When this is land that you practically killed Aboriginal people for and have slated their beliefs and their cultures from. And so are you trying to do the same thing with us because we don't fit the Muslim does not fit the master class ideology? Every single Muslim hijabi that hears this band, she shouldn't feel like the government is actually trying to do her a favor or feel like, the government cares for her well-being. No, the government, if they're going to blatantly place us as a threat to society with our hijab and place us that somehow we become more ignorant if we are wearing a hijab while being a judge or being a doctor or being a teacher, then they are the threat. Then they are the problem. Then that's where the root of all of our issues are. It's not in our hijab. It doesn't make sense in any other manner.
Absolutely. And I think, is it not just when we're discussing the hijab amongst ourselves, for example, with other sisters who wear the hijab or the niqab, how isn't all of the conversation based around how strong we feel in it, how we are empowered, how we don't have to, conform to society's norms, society's standards of beauty? Quite often we try our best to talk about hijab openly and honestly, and the impact that it would have, it's crazy, isn't it, that actually that is a symbol of oppression, and you're constantly told this by the news, by the government, by your schools, by your and of course we do have to worry about the next generation of Muslim girls, the young girls who are going to grow up thinking, it's crazy to me. I'll be honest with you, I had no idea how bad it was in places like Quebec as well. Sister, if you could come in on this as well, how is it, Sister Afrah, what do you think about the current conversation? Like, how do you think we can move forward with this? How can we take, how can we start to counteract this very, very oppressive narrative that we find ourselves in?
Okay, I want to say that in Denmark we don't have a veil ban, but we have a burqa and a niqab ban. And of course, this is against the human rights. Women are not free to choose because of the niqab and the burqa ban. They are free to wear a miniskirt or high heels, but they are not free to wear a niqab or burqa. And in Denmark, there is maximum 200 women who wear the niqab in Denmark. So it's very unfair. It's weird to forbidden them to wear the niqab or the burqa. It's very weird when people tell the police about someone who are wearing the niqab. I just want to also, if I can tell you a little about the Muslim community in Denmark. Mm-hmm. The Muslim community is trying to be strong in Denmark, but it's facing racism. Plus, there are not millions of Muslims in Denmark. There are almost 6% Muslims here by the population. And sometimes I meet the Muslims in the mosque. And I have a lot of friends who are Muslims. And we're trying to help each other when one of us needs help. There are help between us, but we don't have mosques everywhere, like in France, for example. We don't have conferences or meetings every year. I feel the Muslim community needs support, needs help in this hard time, and to be respected, especially now with the COVID-19 problem. Everyone is living separate because the mosque is not open. And here in Denmark, I feel like I respect people who are Christian or with another religion, but So I think that they have to respect me in the same way, but they say that they respect Muslims and to the other religions, but the facts are different here. They talk a lot about freedom and human rights, but when it's coming to right for wearing hijab or the rights for Muslims in general, it's there's no right for us.
It's really, I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? They want to say that it's not just about the Muslims, for example, but then at the same time, they are literally going after niqabs, which is a Muslim thing. They're going after hijab, which is a Muslim thing. The nuns choose to cover their heads as well. We've got sisters, from other faiths, and brothers from other faiths, the Sikh faith, for example, with the turban, and they cover as well when they go into the Gurdwara. Our brothers, of the Jewish faith who choose to wear kippahs. All of this is under, the same sort of symbolism, is it not? It's faith-based symbolism, but the narrative, it's always in the news, it's always the niqab ban. And it's interesting that you mentioned in the context of COVID, right now everyone is mandated to cover their face when we're going out and about, because of lockdown restrictions or whatever it is, to protect each other. People are actually now wearing face coverings. Is that not what they've gone after, but specifically just Muslim women? And interesting enough, in France, there's still, you would still get a fine for wearing a face veil, but they're all wearing face masks. So of course they have used our hijab, our face veils, our niqabi sisters to further themselves politically. Sister Fatima, is there anything you want to come in and say, or Sister Sahar, was that a hand up, or? Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something about the French. When we analyze what the French did in 2003, they requested for a report to be made about the Muslim hijab, and it was under this title called the Stasi Commission report. So that was the basis of why in 2004 they made the hijab ban in France and in public places, such as governmental workers, police officers, etc. And so when you look at that report, if we were just to come and bring in their report and analyze that report, there are so much misinterpretation of Islam and so much racism in it. For instance, if I were to read just one thing that they discuss and how they discuss Islam, it's this: Islam as overtly political and patriarchal, and described Muslim women as oppressed by the religious tradition, hijab. The report also said that they were trying to liberate Muslim women from their oppressive religious beliefs and practices. And so let's say, for instance, someone is oppressed. What's the first thing that you'll do? You'll go towards that oppressed person and ask them questions. Is this correct? Are you feeling oppressed? Is what this report is saying is correct? With this report, they actually did not take into consideration any Muslim's opinion. They just created that. They just created that report and actually completely disregarded the Muslim view on it. And so that becomes a question of, are you truly trying to speak on our behalf if you don't even want our opinion in it? Because I'm sure we can find at least minimum 20,000 Muslim women saying in France that they are not oppressed by the hijab. And so on what basis do you go about saying that the hijab is oppressive other than their barbaric Western imagination of what the hijab represents? And so their imagination, their constructed image of the hijab representing a barbaric Middle Eastern traditions is what actually made them come to that conclusion. It wasn't of the real facts in this day and age.
You know what? I mean, I think, very valid points raised there, and unfortunately, this is the case. And we've got through nearly most of the day and the World Hijab Day conference, and unfortunately, we have had to turn off the comments because we are now getting a lot of hate around this, which is exactly what we are talking about. Quite often I find people through ignorance, and it is just pure ignorance. They want to impose their viewpoints, or here I am saying, no, I'm not oppressed. Yet somebody is trying to say to me that I am oppressed, or, for us right here, this initiative is about raising a voice that we are pro-choice and pro-freedom, and in actual fact, trying to take away the right to wear something or not wear something. It's like you mentioned, you can wear high heels, you can wear skirts, you can wear absolutely everything, but they feel the need to take an item of clothing away from Muslim women. And I think this is this only motivates us further. When there's backlash, negative, this is when we need to pull up our courage, actually, and we need to stand together on this. And I think our governments, our councillors, our politicians need to be aware that we are equal right people of the society. We are here, we vote, we contribute to society as much as we can. And I mean, I can't even understand, if you're not allowing, you're doing a disservice. And this is the reality of it. They are doing a disservice by marginalizing Muslim women, because quite often, if the opportunities are there for us to take part in, here in the UK, we have so many Muslim doctors, lawyers. We have so many Muslim women now starting to get into even the politics. We have Sister Zahra Sultana, who is quite vocal on a lot of aspects here in the UK. And I think more so we need to take this opportunity to empower everyone and continue to empower women to take forward. If they can, then they step into politics, because the world needs to hear us, the world needs to see us, and it's the governments. How do you think, this is a question to all of you guys, how do you think we can positively engage with the politicians, the local politicians or councillors? Or do you think we can, or how can we go about this? I know some of you, you guys are doing amazing work, protesting, you challenging policies. What can our viewers, what can they do that can help us in this fight? Who wants to come in? Yep.
I think that I'm going to be the most skeptical out of everybody here. I'm not really counting on any politician to do the work. And I think, or maybe I'm seeing Sahar smiling. I think she's as skeptical as I am then, maybe. But okay, good to know. I'm not counting on anyone to do the job, because everything throughout history, again, has been proven not to be, the work is not going to be done for us. So I'm one of the people also who no longer says, as much as I used to in the past, this is just about the hijab, it's just a scarf on our head. It's way more than that. It's the taking away of education from women. And it's when you do that, that of course has will have an impact on their children, will have an impact on their household. The taking away of education, having an impact on sexuality of people, of course, through that, because again, it's having an impact on people's views on their own bodies and the way that they get a focus on that in life. That is going to it's not going to, it actually destroyed entire generations of wisdom that we left behind us. And it destroyed entire generations of people that we actually look up to now, but we know that they went through so much suffering that they shouldn't have gone through. So I'm not counting on the grandchildren of colonizers to do the work to liberate the child of someone who lived in occupied territories in North Africa. I think we are capable of doing so by ourselves. And again, with our own lectures, there's the entire idea of men are willing to have something to say about women's bodies, but it's not about men. White women throughout history have proven to do that as well. And one of the tools to do that was white feminism, for example, the use of women's liberation as an excuse to have white men and white women stand side by side and have an impact on women's bodies. So going back to, we had our own figures, and I'm North African, and I'm, an indigenous woman of North Africa. I'm Amazigh, so I look up to certain figures within my own history. But Islamically, we have Khadija radiallahu anha, Fatima-Zohra radiallahu anha, we have Waraqa radiallahu anha. We do not need feminist figures. We do not need women figures to tell us where we should stand in society and how to liberate ourselves. And I mean, Nour is proving it, and so many Muslim counselors that I have around me here prove it. We are having the tools in our hands now to be able to bring that change, and it's coming by step, and just the keeping in mind that we're eventually doing it for a higher purpose, whether we'll see the change from our own eyes or not. We're all profiting here of certain things that have been done by our grandmothers for us, and they haven't been able to enjoy those things. I have a grandmother who doesn't read, yet the work that she has done in her life has had an impact on me being able to go to university. So eventually our work will pay off, even if not for us. So I'm getting a lot of strength out of that. And maybe that's a little detail, but it's something that I'm hearing quite a lot, like the argument of women get to wear, high heels, and they get to wear short skirts. Eventually, in an ideal world, I would love for them to be able to do that as well. And for me to just lower my gaze if that's not a part of their body that I want to see, which is not a part of their body that I want to see. But to know that it's not in the opposing of women that we're actually going to be able to fight for a fight of liberation, because in the end, whether Western women or Muslim women not wearing a headscarf, it's in the opposing of women throughout history that certain things have been able to be obtained by getting the focus off of the fact that in the end, men are making those decisions for us in those positions of power, mostly men, but again, women have also been able to enforce those kind of rulings. But really by saying, eventually, I want everybody to be able to wear anything as long as my human rights are not being taken away from me. I don't know if, again, I'm kind of dispersing myself. But one thing that I wrote down, and that's maybe the last thing I'll say, unfortunately, because there's such a beauty to Islamic faith, and I'm sure we're all Muslim by choice, that is a beauty that we're able to see. And when I'm with my friends, we don't talk about the hijab that much, because it's that certainty about that's an obligation we have, and that's something that is part of who we are. But we talk about spirituality. We talk about the way deeper meanings and feelings that we get out of being in sujood and praying. That's such a strong feeling, and people who have and are able to not only experience it but talk about it in between themselves. Those are such beautiful spiritual parts of our religion that people are not exposed to as much as we actually live through them. And by having those sort of bans throughout history, whether even men having to shave off their beard to have more chance of finding a job, us the wearing of the headscarf, and just certain details. The fact that we live in the West, people focus so much on pork and alcohol. That's like the only rules that exist within Islam. That's like the only things that we talk about: the headscarf, pork, and alcohol. And that is actually making us attach ourselves to things that aren't that important, and that are actually getting us away of many more things that we could experience as a collective. Like I'm dreaming of the day that we're actually going to hold immense events in Belgium, like we organize now when the ban came. They would organize events as big, not to fight against anything and not to fight against any project by Belgian law, but really to come together as a collective and talk about spirituality. And I think that is actually one of the intentions behind those kind of bans. It is making it impossible to really unite and to really organize ourselves as a Muslim collective, as an ummah. And so getting back to that is doing the exact work that they do not want us to do. So way more than focusing, really, because we're doing the Hijab is Fight Back campaign. But next to that, there's really the idea of healing the coming together and focusing on everything that the state actually doesn't want us to focus on, which is us and our faith and real, true, deep spirituality and meaning in our existence. I think that is, in the end, where we'll really find liberation, not only individually, but really as a collective too.
Amazing points there, honestly. Thank you for, just putting that out there. And it is about, of course, we can try our best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to tie our camels and then leave the rest up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Social activism is so important to us as a faith collective, and we all have a voice. And almost, of course, it's a duty on us to stand up against any injustice. If we if we can't do anything with our hands, if we raise a voice, and if we can't raise a voice, then we raise it. At least bare minimum is to do dua and prayers for protection for our sisters, because reality is the politicization of the hijab, the gendered Islamophobia, it's real, it's getting worse. And we really need to, take control of that. And as women, we have a duty. Here's a question for you guys. Do you think, we've discussed a few things. Do you think it's because they understand the power or the strength behind the faith of a Muslim woman once she understands her faith and in our history, the Muslim, you've mentioned Sister Fatima, you've mentioned, Khadija radiallahu anha, Aisha. If you think about it, Aisha radiallahu anha, we have such amazing pillars of strength within our Islamic history. Is it really because that they've understood this and they're actually just trying to dismantle us from within? And is it just about the governments and the non-Muslim community, or is it also about the oppression we face as Muslim women within our communities as well? Do you think our brothers in Islam, do you think as a community we could be doing more to raise a voice and put our Muslim women to the forefront? Does anybody want to take that question? Sister Sahar, can we have a response from you?
Yes, of course. And so it's definitely, that's definitely the case. When you look at what they plan to do, the government is not naive. Again, it's not ignorant to the fact that the hijab is something that a lot of women choose to wear in order to obey God. They know that the hijab is something that's fundamental in the religion of Islam. But of course, they have a hidden agenda. They ultimately know what they want from society. Is they want the consumer society. They want the modernized society. Islam is fundamentally against all of that. When you analyze what the French stand for, is that they stand for a secularist state. Islam stands for a religion that will be liberated by worshiping God and only God and everything about God. And so that is fearful to them. They are afraid of what the Islam stands for and the power of the hijab. As you said, the hijab is a symbol in which no matter where you go, you know that this person wearing the hijab is of a Muslim faith. It's a representation, and Allah made it rightfully so that our respect and so that our dignity is ingrained in that beauty. And so when we try and think about why they are doing something like that, and if we are going to go and have hope that the political movement is going to actually do something about that, then we'd be putting our hope in the wrong places. The only place that we're supposed to put our hope from is two things. Number one, what we're supposed to be doing is we're actually supposed to be working on ourselves. We're supposed to become people that can actually analyze our faults, analyze where we need to be, where we need to get to in our Islamic beliefs and in our Islamic fundamentals. It's so imperative that we become individuals that are so aware of the Muslim belief, of the Muslim religion. We know everything. We know history. We know our jurisprudence. We have a strong core. It shouldn't be left to Islamic jurists to do that. As you said, you're doing your own research right now. That is so important because it's important for us as a society, and this leads to the second thing, for us as a society to become strong. And so right now with World Hijab Day, where you're able to join so many people around the world, so many Muslims around the world that are so strong and empowered with the hijab and are doing a movement and doing a change around all over the world. And I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of other Muslim women that are doing the same thing. This society, we're supposed to create as an ummah, as a community, regardless if you're Sunni, Shia, regardless if you're wearing the hijab fully or short, like, different way. It's the important thing is that us as a Muslim and us as a community of a Muslim, we're supposed to be the backbone for each other. And we're supposed to be empowering each other. And if that's not happening, which unfortunately is happening, and we can see some of the comments were very inappropriate, that is going to break the Muslim identity and the Muslim backbone. And so together, if we're going to stand as a collective unity, that the hijab is our right because we are not impairing anything in society other than our freedom, then that makes us empowered to be able to do such extraordinary things. If we go back in history and look at all these incredible females, such as Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, the wife of a man that is so terrible. He was the worst leader in the whole world. He was extremely rich, but he was a king that was brutal. Yet she believed in God, and she believed in something that everyone around her did not believe. Everyone used to bow down to her husband. Yet she was able to stay strong in her faith and say, no, that is not correct. I believe in something greater than that. God is the one I should worship. We see every single community is going to have a terrible problems and terrible outcomes and terrible issues that we're going to have to face. But what's important is how we face them. What's important is our belief system and who we are. And so never feel like we need the policies of political leaders to empower us. For all we could say is that they're the ones that are actually causing us all these problems, and they're the ones that needs to deal with bigger issues rather than the hijab. But their choice in actually making the hijab an issue speaks volumes.
Absolutely. Sister Nour, do you want to come in at this point as well and say a few words?
I agree with my sisters. However, I just want to be more hopeful for the people who are listening to us. The thing is, we don't have to be social activists. We don't have to be political activists in order to have our rights and our voice respected. I think we need to be educated, as they said. We need to be awake, present, and we need to stand up. And the more we have a valuable presence in a society, the more we have a valuable presence in politics. And I think that we cannot enjoy our faith if we live in a place where we are oppressed. So I think that we have to have a voice, and this voice, it can only be by going to school, having a degree, doing something for society, and this is how we can have a voice and live in a society where our freedoms are not attacked. So I just wanted to bring that to the conversation.
Thank you so much. Sister Nour, did you want to say a few words as well?
I think you met Afrah.
Oh, sorry, Sister Afrah.
I just want to say that when I was politically active, I was in politics. I just feel that I received bad and racist comments on social media. I felt that I could not be represented in politics being a Muslim because they will not choose me, they will not vote for me because I'm Muslim. They gave me the feeling that I don't have the right religion to be involved in politics. Maybe they think that the Muslim woman should just stay home and do the housework. But I really don't know if it's getting better or worse, because it depends on the period. Sometimes I feel it's getting better, and sometimes I feel it's getting worse. It depends on what happens in the world. When there are terrorist acts and people say Muslim people are terrorists, I feel that people look at me in a different way. But I really want to say something for our sisters. For our sisters in Denmark and the whole world. Stay strong, never give up, wear your hijab with happiness, because it's a blessing from God. Wearing hijab, it means that if you believe in it, of course, it's a protection and it's a sign of faith and modesty. So you should be happy that you are protected and you are blessed. Be brave, don't give up, wear your hijab with your heads up, because you are blessed from God, and this is the most important thing. It's not the satisfaction of the others, because maybe others don't love you, but God loves you because you obey.
Powerful messages right there. Sister Nour, is there anything you want to say as well about this? What positive message would you, I know you've actually just tried to, share some positivity there. What message would you have for your sisters in Quebec and the rest of the world?
Honestly, it's such a difficult question because of the trial and everything that has been happening with the Bill 21 situation and the backlash that I have been receiving the last few months. It's such a touchy subject for me, honestly, and this is why I wasn't able to say what I wanted to say today. But what I want to say to my sisters all around the world is be proud of who you are. You are strong. You are like so much stronger than what you think, and be determined to occupy spaces that aren't built for you and to stand up for people who don't have a voice. You are powerful. You have everything in you. You have everything you need to be powerful in you. You don't need anyone. And I think that the fact that only being yourself in your hijab, without your hijab, as a Muslim woman in this world, in this capitalistic world, in this colonial world, this is enough to be yourself in this world right now. So just be proud of yourself, and I'm proud of each one of you that has made the choice to wear the hijab or not, or is thinking about it, because we live in such a difficult world right now in Quebec for Muslim women.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Sister Fatima, can you say a few words? What message would you want to give to our sisters who are thinking about wearing the hijab or who do wear the hijab?
Oh, that's a tough one to say something to someone who would be wearing it, who would want to wear it, because that's a lot of pressure. I'm not sure I can carry, but maybe to react and to give a last word on what I would say to any sisters out there, to react upon a few things that I have heard. I myself describe myself as a decolonial feminist, and I know that's a touchy feeling within the Muslim community, but it's an important one to talk about, because there have been decolonial women movements throughout history that I get my inspiration from in the work that I do. But whether like Sahar said, it, whether Sunni or Shia, there are so many schools in Islam, there are so many different ways of viewing religion, which is the right thing to do, because we are pushed towards being critical about whatever situation we live in, and being critical about our context, and viewing religion in a link with, sociology and with anthropology and within the state of the societies we live in, is something that we are actually being how do we say that in English, but that we're being pushed towards in our faith and in the way that we should view our faith and read our faith. So it's actually a good thing to do, but I really think that the answers to these kind of problems will come from also being critical about our the things that aren't really functioning well within the community. When I see, for example, that we did all of the work that we did for Hijabis Fight Back, and that part of the backlash that we actually had was from Muslim men that weren't okay with us on our private accounts having, certain things about feminism, but that was actually, like when you hear me talk today, that are quite in accordance with my Islamic faith. But those conversations weren't being held because we simply talked about the headscarf. And there's like the criticality that actually comes from certain names that we put on each other. And those are things that we learn from society. I mean, Sahar put it very well. Islam, in its faith, has everything to fight against neocolonialism, has everything to fight against capitalism, has everything to fight against misogyny. Those are not things that were learned to us. Those are things that Muslims throughout history have actually brought to the wisdom that everybody is profiting of. So getting back to the roots of how critical we are allowed to be about everything, including our faith, including people within our communities, is something that is necessary to also recognize that there are certain things that aren't functioning well in terms of women's rights all over the world, not only within Muslim communities, but of course, if Muslim communities grow within a world where certain problems in terms of women's rights exist, Muslim communities, of course, will be impacted by that. And so we have today problems that certain people do not want to talk about. We have, for example, the fact that we talk about sexual harassment within the Muslim communities, or within any communities for that matter, that were being pointed towards as being bad Muslims. Those are actually things that our religious faith is not only telling us that we have to do, but actually gives us the tools to fight against. And so holding those very critical, in-depth conversations in the community will make us stronger as a whole to be able to fight those things. Because as long as we're actually seeing ourselves through those very narrow names of, you have the Shia, and you have the feminists, and you have the turban-wearing Muslima, and you have the good Muslima who's wearing the hijab the way she should wear it. Those are actually things that are keeping us all, in the separate boxes that are doing everything not to be able to unite on those very critical questions that we should be able to unite on. And so, to me, what I would say to anyone is be you as a Muslim, and be okay with people being them as Muslims. And in the end, what really does care, like I said earlier, the spirituality, that is something that no human will ever be able to read in another human. Nobody will ever be able to read into someone else how they feel during prayer. And so what we should really be focusing on as Muslims today is how we're behaving within, in between ourselves and within the community, to be able to project that ideal of, I was going to say perfection, but I don't know how to say it in English. So perfection, okay, that's simply the same word, but with a different accent, I'm sorry. But perfection, that we should project, and that is the main work that we have to do. So to any Muslim, just work on you. And that's also what Islam says in the end. It's that whatever you want to change in the world, change it in yourself. And so that would be my last word.
Thank you so much. There's a little bit of time left, so it might not be your last word just yet, okay. But we'll see. So Sister Sahar as well, can we get some words from you? What would your final message be? What would you want to, definitely get across to our sisters around the world, and to actually everybody tuned in, because inshallah there's a lot of ways that we can make allies with other faiths and with our brothers in Islam as well. And very important points raised there. I think inshallah we'll pick up with Sister Fatima's points as well.
Yes, definitely. So what's important for us to analyze, and is sometimes what we do is that we expect the sheikh or Islamic scholars for them to take the whole toll of Islam and the burden of everything on their backs and to walk with it, and that they're the only people that can actually live an Islamic lifestyle. When in reality, every single job that you do, whether it be a lawyer, whether it be an engineer, whether it be an author, whether it be a teacher, every single role that you can do, you can actually perform it in a manner that elevates your Islam and elevates your hijab and elevates the impact that you're actually going to do in community and society around you. And so what's important for everyone to know is that no matter what your position is, even if you're just a secretary working behind a desk, you're going to see people are going to see your hijab. And so it's important for you to know that to never doubt yourself. Am I doing enough for Islam? Am I really a representation in Islam? Every single person and every single role that someone has it because God has placed talents in them and has placed his belief that this person can ultimately reach to his perfection and the perfection of the self if they strive and if they try hard enough. And even if you fail, that's fine. You get back up, just like Islam tells us. And so for everyone that's trying in Islam to do their best, and for Muslims, it's the idea that nothing in religion is something that you have to love. You don't have to love praying. You don't have to love wearing the hijab. That's actually what might cause a lot of problems in the future. What you're supposed to do is actually just love worshiping God. And so if my ultimate goal is me worshiping God and my love lies in my worship to God, that means that even if I don't find fasting in a day enjoyable, I'm still going to do it because this is something that God has mandated as obligatory and has told me that this is important for me to do. And so this love that you build with the hijab, it takes time and it takes nurturing and it takes work. It can't be something that we can expect from a young girl from the next day. Do you love the hijab? Well, she's going to say, yeah, but she it's not going to be authentic. She loves the hijab when she grows with it and learns its importance and learns why she does it and how special it is for that child to wear. And so really, to me, what's important for everyone to understand is I have a sociology and communications degree. I don't have, I studied Islam just because I was able to go abroad and study it. And it was a goal of mine since I was a kid. However, this degree, even if it's something that has nothing to do with Islam, I was able to actually take it and analyze how can I make it so that I can understand Islam. And for me, it's important that I start to, take my degree and actually make it to use in an Islamic manner. So I actually published the book, But Why is the Hijab So Special? And this book is such an important book for young literature for children. So it talks about so many things. It talks about a young girl who's trying to wear the hijab for the first day. She has her party. And she's questioning the hijab. It's important to question it. Why do we wear the hijab? And create an environment that allows children to actually ask the important questions. Why should the hijab be worn like this? Where in the Quran does it talk about the hijab? Where in history? Why is the hijab just a scarf? And when we ask these questions and when we facilitate a conversation in a healthy manner, even if it's difficult, it actually leads us to become closer to God. Because ultimately, if you're a Muslim, that means whatever God has willed for you will be of cherish and love and light. And so it's important for everyone to take their life and transform it and make sure that it's a God-conscious lifestyle. Everything has taqwa, everything has fear of disappointing God, not hellfire, disappointment God. And so that's really where hijab lies. Hijab isn't something that you just wear on. Hijab is as a part of a lifestyle. So analyze your whole lifestyle. Is it a God-conscious lifestyle?
Sure, amazing points there. Thank you so much for that. And you know, if I take it back to how I feel about the hijab, you're right. I grew to love it. You know, there were different reasons for me to choose to wear it, and then probably I had a bit of a turbulent relationship with it. And you know, when you're bombarded by society's idea of freedom or being independent and strong, it's very different. So growing up, for sure, you know, it was a bit of an on and off experience. But as I got older and I understood the deen and I understood myself and I understood how empowering this is, it really sort of made me strong in it. And I think before we are already coming up towards the literally last 10 minutes of it, I think it's important to mention here right now. So the topic today has been politicization of hijab, and we can't do that topic justice without talking about our personal experiences and, you know, where we live and all of that stuff within that context. And, you know, thank you so much to Sister Fatima, who's, you know, added the historical side of things of colonialism as well, because that's a very important aspect as well. It's you know, in my travels, for example, when I've traveled, I've had the opportunity to travel to Jerusalem in Palestine so many times. Alhamdulillah, in 2020 I traveled there 7 times to visit Masjid al-Aqsa. And as a Muslim woman traveling abroad, you know, the wearing a hijab, all of that stuff, and getting to a Muslim country, somewhere where, you know, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and all the prophets had traveled, the Sahaba have traveled and lived there, and, you know, the peace that you get of traveling to blessed lands, and, you know, that connection you feel. I think the hijab took on a new meaning for me, you know, through Jerusalem as well. And the political aspect came in when, you know, constantly traveling back. I used to take groups to Masjid al-Aqsa basically, and I'd always stay back a couple of days to have that alone time in Masjid al-Aqsa. And then that also meant that I was traveling back to the UK from Palestine on my own as a Muslim woman wearing a hijab. Now, of course, the checkpoints that you come across, several checkpoints before you get to the airport. And what happens was, you know, obviously you're on a bus full of people of the Jewish faith, quite visibly, you know, with the black hats, etc. I was pulled off the buses each and every time we went through a checkpoint because I was wearing a hijab like this, because of course Jewish women also choose to cover their hair, but quite visibly this is a sign that I'm an Arab Muslim, or I'm a, you know, I'm definitely Muslim, or maybe I'm Palestinian, or maybe, you know, these type of things. And politically, of course, this is where it comes in, because we are so visibly Muslim women. We have to say that this is something that is directed at us, and we are targeted here. And World Hijab Day and this movement is solely about standing up for the freedom to choose to wear what we want. Primarily, it is as simple as that. It's a basic human right. It's human rights we're talking about here, to be able to express our faith. That's another human right that, to be honest, is actually supposed to be protected. You know, in our countries, we don't live in third world countries. We live in, you know, I'm here in the UK. These things are supposed to be covered by our legislations and rights. The human rights, they of course apply to us as Muslim women as well. So I think this is it's not a topic that, of course, we can you know, win overnight, but collectively, like you said, it's about empowering each other, uniting together. We get stronger in numbers, we get stronger when we raise a voice. And I think alhamdulillah for the conversation that we have had, the valid points that you amazing, awesome, strong, powerful women, you know, you've been able to share with us today with your personal experiences and insights. It's been amazing to have you guys with us. Is there anything else that you'd want to say just quickly about this topic? Brilliant. Sister
yeah.
Afrah?
Can you hear me? Okay. Honestly, to be honest, I didn't know the World Hijab Day exists, and of course I wanted to participate because it's important for me to tell my own story and to share my own experience with the others, because we have women who don't talk a lot about the hijab, maybe because they don't dare. It's important to give a voice to women who wear the hijab. And I wanted to talk for myself, but also for all the silent women who are wearing hijab in silence. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a voice. It's important to say that we are here, we are wearing hijab, but we have a choice and we have a voice, and we want to participate, and we want to share our experience. We want to say that we exist like the others, and we are just human beings.
Thank you so much. And I think this is it, isn't it? That's what we all are here to say today. Inshallah, it has been, an opportunity to create an understanding, not just between ourselves, but also, for perhaps the non-Muslim community who maybe can understand how important it is and how we feel when, our rights are encroached like this, and something so important to us is actually being pulled away from us. Quite literally, like you said, quite violently as well with the bans. Anything else from the sisters? Sister Nour?
I wanted to say to everyone that is listening to us, and I think I talk on behalf of everyone here, is that if you feel oppressed, if you feel like you want to talk to someone about hijab, Islam, where you live, you can reach us. You can talk to us through Instagram. I think you have all our information in the organization, so you are welcome to write to us, to me, to talk about whatever. And I think that every single woman here feel like it's our duty to be there for you and to listen to you, and it will be a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful message at the end there. Sister Sahar, Sister Fatima, would you like to come in just before we head off?
Yes, thank you so much, Nour, and for that message, and the other sister. I definitely think every single female, just as the sister was saying, no matter what you're doing, even if you're silent in your platform, it doesn't mean that you don't have a voice. It means that you have a voice in your own manner. And your voice, ultimately to God, is the most important voice that you can have. And so it's important for us to not lose hope in sight, even if society around us is all targeting Muslims, is all going around against what we believe in. It's important for us to really focus as a Muslim community, to not focus on division, but really to focus on strengthening one voice together, with our differences, actually just appreciate them and learn to work in a better manner together. Because ultimately, what colonial society wants from us is for us to disperse and for us to start to fight against each other, and to actually hate the differences in the other. And so I truly encourage all of us to work in an ummah, to be able to enjoin good and forbid evil in a positive manner, and to really appreciate and actually encourage the Muslim work on social media. That's the type of work that you want to put on your media feed. You want to make sure that you're following and you're encouraging and you're supporting Muslim businesses, Muslim communities, Muslim mosques. You're donating whatever you can. You can't donate money. See if you can donate your time, especially to all these organizations. We can see how important and crucial it is for us to lift up lift each other, and not to depend on anyone else. Because we have to stop being very judgmental of what the other Muslim individual is doing and let go of our ego and maybe sometimes jealousy, whatever it may be. We are a Muslim community. Let's focus on that, and let's focus on strengthening each other rather than dispersing. So really, that's just my critical last words of thought to everyone.
Thank you so much. Honestly, that unity is something that we could all do with a dose of, for sure. Sister Fatima, I know you said about within the Muslim community about, we call it here the haram police, the judgy Muslims that actually attack sisters who are doing sometimes amazing work, but because they're showing, a few strands of hair, then that's discrediting them. And I know you've come, with the terms of feminists. Now, I know you must have been, and I know I've been attacked with the same sort of, labels. It's almost to work to silence the Muslim woman's voice when you get, you get accused of being a feminist, which is, oh my God, that can't be anything to do. That's against Islam. Whereas reality is that, of course, Islam, if we were given our rights by the Muslim community, we wouldn't have an issue right now. We wouldn't have to be working against within our own communities to get our voice out there. So if you could just continue that, and then maybe just finish off with, a powerful message, which, again, your social media, guys, you can connect with all of these amazing speakers through World Hijab Day, Instagram as well. They'll all be tagged. Powerful Instagrams, powerful messages out there by all of them. So Sister Fatima, please, if you could.
Okay, to get back on the touchy issue of feminism, I'm actually one of the decolonial feminists that most feminist movements wouldn't agree with either, because I'm very critical of feminist theories, and I'm very critical, certainly, of white feminism and the way it was brought up. I mean, suffragettes, for example, they had their rights given to them simply because they were carried by women of color who actually did the hard work for them to be able to be liberated outside of their household. So there has to be, again, the idea of putting history back into its context and realizing that if today we are comfortable with using words like feminism, my ancestors were not. So that's why I always say decolonial feminists and not feminists on its own. And because there is that idea of staying critical towards all of the theories that you're putting yourself into, and that we have to recognize that through history, men have been given certain places of power and certain, their behavior has been excused in certain ways that has been carried on and given us certain results like we have today. We were at a very critical point, at least here in Belgium. I don't know how it's going in all of your contexts, but in terms of sexual harassment on children in family contexts, and the fact that they have no institutions to actually be able to rely on, those kind of I don't know how to say it in English again, but that actually the fact that solutions should actually be able to get out of the Muslim communities in terms of those questions, because like I said, we have been given all of the tools to be able to solve this kind of very complex, difficult questions. But today there's that tendency of, like you said it very, very well, Shreen, of wanting to make women shut up very clearly and wanting them to hold their mouth about certain questions that we see as being very touchy, while they are not. They're very natural. We're talking about women having a place in society that they have been given throughout history. Nobody gave it to them. It has been given to them through religion, and it has been taken away from them throughout history. And now women are getting it back by their own readings of religion that are nothing new, that are actually proper to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And so it's actually the first time I'm talking about religion this way. So I think to the people that I know that actually are following the live today, it's going to be quite weird, because again, I'm very used to talking in a very defensive mode. And like Nour, I was actually not super open to participate today, because the way that we have been depicted in Belgian media, and the fact that our team photo, for example, has been used in media and put us in danger. We have had someone come up on social media and actually put pictures of him. We're supposed to hold an event, but he didn't know it was a virtual event. So he went to the address where those kind of events are usually held, and he was waiting for us with rocks. So there were pictures put on social media. So he wanted to lapidate us, like he said it. So he wanted to stone us. So they're really all of that. And that was not a Muslim guy, because we always say that stoning is something proper to Muslims, but it was not. It was a white guy. So I'd like for all non-Muslim white people now to come up and apologize on his behalf, because we all always ask that from us. But so that's where we see that actually that violence is not proper to any group. That violence is proper to certain behaviors and people growing up in certain contexts. And so sometimes it's proper to those Muslim men that do not agree with us because they have their own reasoning, and sometimes it's proper to non-Muslim men, and sometimes it's proper to those non-Muslim women. But in all cases, I do not always see them as people that I'm fighting against. I'd rather recognize all of the people that I'm actually standing next to. And that's a beautiful thing that Sahar said, the fact that everybody has a voice, and just in their own manner, like we made the decision to all do the work that we do, and certain people do it very vocally and are very vocal about these kind of beliefs and their social implication. I mean, I was taught religion, and I was taught what it is like to function within society by people who have no university degrees. So I do not see any more value in that than I see in in those degrees than I see in anything else. I just think that we all occupy different strategic posts within that entire strategy of moving forward together. And so certain people are having their voices heard, others are carrying the weight of that, and others are standing next to it and cheering them on. And I see that it's functioning very well, and you'll always have people who do not agree with you, whether within the community or outside of it, but we are moving forward. Again, when I talk, especially in English, my brain just flows. I hope I was understood well. And I'm actually very thankful that I got to discover all four of you today, and that I'll be able to follow whatever work you're doing from now on.
Oh, thank you so much, sister. Honestly, it's been amazing connecting to you guys. And I think the bottom line for all of us is perhaps that we want to work together. We want to be strong. We want to be known as voices individually. We want people to know that actually there is work being done behind the scenes, and we will continue to do this work despite the backlash we may face, despite the negativity we may face. And you know, when it comes to something as beautiful and as important to us as deen, I always see, you know, when people ask you how on earth do you fast for like 18 hours a day, go without water and food and things like that, and why do we do that? We do that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we have that determination from our faith. And this is, in actual fact, it's the same thing when we're raising a voice here for World Hijab Day. It's for our faith. It's something that is important to us, and we hope that everyone can continue to support to us. I know Sister Sahar wants to say one last final point, and then inshallah we'll conclude this this topic discussion.
Just the last final point, especially with the politicization of the hijab, what a lot of the times, unfortunately, is that they expect us, as Sister Fatima said, is for us to be apologetic. It's for us to almost apologize for what's happening with ISIS, with everyone, with the tragedies that are happening around the world. If someone's wearing a hijab, okay, now I want you to apologize for them. No, honestly, at that point, we should really put our foot down. We should start to understand that we have to become unapologetic Muslims. I don't need to apologize to you for deciding to wear the hijab. I don't need to apologize to you for believing in this faith fully. It's just like another sister said, where, you know, we have so much respect to the Christian faith and to all faiths, really. So we expect that reciprocated faith and that's reciprocated love, but yet we're almost always apologizing for all of these. And so what's important for us is to have an identity as an unapologetic Muslim. This is my beliefs in Islam, and I can say that this is my beliefs with 1, 2, 3 because I've done my research. And in terms of feminism and what we're talking about in Islam and all of that, when we talk about Islam, Islam is a religion that considers the soul of the individual to be genderless. Our soul in front of God's eyes is a genderless. It does not have a gender. We are not seen as a female in front of God's eyes. And that's why in the Quran, when God talks and addresses us, he talks and addresses the soul as in what your soul will accomplish, not what your gender is. But here on earth, our gender has a specific role. The female has specific roles within her gender in Islam. The male has predominantly male masculine roles in his gender. That is how Islam works. And that's how we should appreciate our religion, that God is so merciful to not label one gender above another, yet both genders are equal in the eyes of God, yet every single gender has its own role. And so the female's role is to wear the hijab. The male, of course, they have their own form of modesty, which could be considered in their own terms of hijab. And so, last point, nothing but God will suffice us. Nothing but God will fill the void in your heart. And that's where we should ultimately put all of our faith and love.
Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful way to end, this topic discussion. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we, continue as much as we can. We have come towards the end of it. I did just want to make a quick mention about World Hijab Day. Of course, it's, been nationally accepted in, Philippines quite recently. They've made it into a national day. There's a few states in America where it's actually become, acknowledged as well. And we hope to continue this and, reach all parts of the world. And at some point we have that hope and we hold on to that positive hope that we can make a very big difference in the life of the many Muslims who are actually discriminated against for wearing the hijab or don't have the choice to wear the hijab in their countries. World Hijab Day is not just for the 1st of February. We work throughout the year. We hope to set up more initiatives. We have, a weekly webinar on Fridays now called Modesty Table. And we, inshallah, will hopefully have these lovely speakers back on Modesty Table as well. So we can get to know them more and raise more awareness and continue to create understanding about Muslim women who choose to wear hijab and actually they're not oppressed. They are not, scary people. We are actually, we want the same things. We bleed the same. We love the same. We want the best for our families, for our children, for the future generations. We want to create an environment of love and peace throughout the world, and inshallah, we will be able to do that because I feel it is now on us as women to step up further. And we make special du'as for all the women who are our role models throughout our history as well. So ladies, thank you so much. I'm going to play, we'll play out a beautiful poem by a young sister here in the UK about the hijab. I'm really proud of her. I think she's only 19, 20, bless her. And she's a spoken word poet, so I'll share that. And ladies and gents, please do go check out the website as well, worldhijabday.com. There's an opportunity for you to continue to support us as well. And there's a donate link on the website if you wish to support us in that way. But anyways, I leave you with lots of love, hope and du'as. Please continue to support all of us, your sisters in Islam. God bless and take care.
Hijab is not something you should be ashamed of, feel afraid or allow others to make you take off. I'm sorry if I've ever made you feel that way. And I apologize if I've ever made you feel unsafe. I guess we judge each other too quickly. And we forget to focus on our own imperfections on our journeys. We never know when life can take us in the same states. Because yeah, we are deeply saddened, but our words have a huge part to play. I mean, if you see a sister struggling, support her, educate her, and with kindness show her the way. Address her in a manner that the true love that our religion displays. Rather push her further and further away. Cause hijab is our strength, our courage, our crowns. So if you see your sister slipping, you pick it up and lift her too when she's down. And it's the honour passed down from our greatest women to our women, from all walks, black, white and brown. Though at times we forget where else modesty can be found, it goes hand in hand with more than what the eye can see. It can apply to both men and women, but often we forget that it may lie within our character, the way we carry ourselves and our speech.
Thank you. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.